Conservative new media viewers, JLin fans around the world, Charlotte Hornets fans around the world. What's up? It's me, PFE, Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. We're here to discuss Charlotte's 101-87 victory tonight over the Washington Wizards in Charlotte, North Carolina. With the win, Charlotte improves to 9-6 on the season. This is their fourth victory in a row. Wizards fall to 6-6 on the year. I am almost certain, in fact, I will check right now. The Charlotte Hornets, as of today, early Thursday, November 26th, Thanksgiving here in the United States, are currently the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs, if the season ended today, which of course it does not. So that is terrific. We were hoping that Charlotte would be able to kind of maybe qualify for one of the two final spots in the Eastern Conference, and right now they're positioned even better than that. Now, the schedule will be getting tougher, but that's very good to see early on this season. Let me say this. Before the game took place, Steve Clifford signed a reported 3-year extension with the team. I think that's really good news. I believe that Steve Clifford's an excellent head coach, and I'm glad for him and his family and for the organization that they have extended Steve Clifford. I think that's really a good decision. Also, after the last game, the comeback against the Sacramento Kings, Kemba Walker was asked about playing with JLin, and he said that JLin was a great player. That was basically a direct quote. He's a great player. The final thing I want to say is ESPN has just put up, they just did this yesterday, they put up a statistic known as RPM. That is real plus minus. It's basically the plus minus stat, and it's taken through different equations and modifications to try to make it more fair and realistic. Now, I want to say that of all the Charlotte Hornets, Jeremy's RPM is next to the lowest. A positive RPM is good. A negative RPM is not good. Jeremy's RPM is something like a minus 2.50 or something like this. What that basically means is that when you're on the court per 100 possessions, just a standardizing thing, the team is supposedly like 2.5 points worse than its opponent when Jeremy's on the court right now. Last year, Jeremy's RPM was positive, which is a good thing. So why is this happening now? I was actually surprised by this. I didn't expect this. New team, new situation, and Jeremy's playing a different role. He's playing more off the ball, which he's got to get used to a little bit more. And so I think it's all of those things combined. I would imagine that this statistic will improve for Jeremy as the season goes along. Jeremy was a positive and plus minus tonight. But that did come up. And Jeremy Lamb is like number 5 on the team. He's positive. So these are things that the coaching staff might be looking at or thinking about when they do their assessments and evaluations of who's going to be playing and who's not going to be playing, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that is what's happening, but it could be happening. Okay, now what happened in the game tonight? What happened in the game tonight was that this was a very similar game to the Sacramento game. The score was almost even at halftime. Charlotte was really bad in the third quarter. They just were outscored by 11 points in this game. They fell behind. It wasn't looking great. And then Charlotte made a huge fourth quarter comeback. This fourth quarter comeback was even bigger than the Sacramento fourth quarter comeback. Charlotte outscored the Wizards 27-6 in the fourth quarter tonight. Washington set a franchise record for fewest points scored, I think, in any quarter, but certainly in the fourth quarter of a game in which they played in, with the 6 points. Washington shot something like 1 for 20 from the field in the fourth quarter. That's how bad it was. And Charlotte they picked up the intensity, they got on a roll, and that's basically what happened. Statistics, just keeping it simple. Marcin Gortat and Bradley Beal each had 17 points tonight for the Wizards. The Hornets were led by Jeremy Lamb off the bench with 18 points. Kemba and Nicholas Batum each had 16. Marvin Williams and Al Jefferson each had 14. Jeremy Lin, 5 points in 15 minutes played, 2 of 4 shooting from the field, including 0 of 1 from three-point range, 1 for 1 from the free throw line, no rebounds, no assist, no steals, 2 block shots, 3 turnovers, 4 personal fouls. Jeremy's plus-minus was a +8. Jeremy was, just looking at efficiency numbers, Jeremy was best in the first half, and he was not as effective in the second half. And I'll go over a little bit in terms of how he was used and being taken out for Jeremy Lamb, so forth. Jeremy played fine in tonight's game. All you can quibble about here is the 3 turnovers, and I'll talk about them in a second. Jeremy played the fewest minutes of any Charlotte player tonight. Okay, so he didn't have a ton of opportunities. He also had 4 blown assists in this game at least, so he could have had more assists, certainly. Jeremy Lamb was the person that Steve Clifford chose to use in the kind of the 6th man role. So when P.J. Hairston wasn't in the game and down the stretch, Lamb was the person who was playing that role rather than Jeremy Lin. I know a lot of Jeremy Lin fans are upset about that, and I understand it. However, I will say this. In the last 4 games, including tonight, Jeremy Lin has gotten more minutes, or roughly the same number of minutes, as Jeremy Lamb in 3 of those games. In the Brooklyn game, Jeremy Lin got more minutes than Jeremy Lamb did. In the Philadelphia game, Jeremy Lin started the game, and they had roughly the same number of minutes played. Jeremy Lamb had 1 more minute played. In a Sacramento game, Jeremy Lin played more minutes than Jeremy Lamb did. However, tonight, Jeremy Lamb played more minutes. So I know it's frustrating for Jeremy Lin fans. It seems kind of arbitrary almost. And we're back to the Kevin McHale, hot stock, cold stock, and the guy that's playing well finishes the game. It's not an ideal situation if you're a Jeremy Lin fan, and if you're Jeremy Lin, because other guys have more defined roles, and you're not sure if you're going to finish or not. And that's reality. Unfortunately, that's what it is. However, looking at the bigger picture and looking at these other games, Jeremy is getting opportunities. So I don't think it's a open and shut case that Jeremy Lamb is going to be used as the 6th man all the time and as the finisher all the time. I think Jeremy Lin will be used in that role more. Like I said, it's too bad that it's not. If you're a Jeremy Lin fan, it's too bad that Jeremy's not have that role like permanently, like he might have, like he had kind of in Houston. But this is what it is right now. Jeremy has to take advantage of it. I think he's doing a pretty good job. He didn't play perfect tonight, but he played well. He played good defense, and he helped turn the tide in the fourth quarter. I'll talk about that in a second. But I just wanted to add a little bit of perspective on this, and that the Jeremy Lin has gotten good advantage in several of the last games. as in relation to Jeremy Lamb. Okay. Now, where Jeremy's at basically in the depth chart is, again, he fights for the sixth man role with Jeremy Lamb, and sometimes he'll get a little more or a little less minutes than Cody Zeller. So right now, Steve Clifford's kind of settled into a new 9-man rotation, and it's the starting group, then JLin, Jeremy Lamb, Frank Kaminsky, and Cody Zeller. I think adding Frank Kaminsky to the rotation and taking Spencer Hawes out of the rotation is going to help the team. And the way that Frank Kaminsky played in the Sacramento game showed that he's kind of ready. He's more prepared now to be able to play in the rotation. And like I said, nothing against Spencer Hawes, but Frank Kaminsky is going to be a better player than Spencer Hawes is. So that makes the team better. And overall, the team's looking good. This is an important win tonight, as I said in the previous video. They needed to win this game. And so, certainly I'm a Jeremy Lin fan, and I'm coming from that perspective. But from a team perspective, I was just really happy they won this game. And sure, I'd like Jeremy Lin to play more, but I was really happy that the team won. Like I said before, the more the team wins, the easier things are going to be for Jeremy Lin. The simpler they're going to be. Even if he ends up deciding that he wants to move on from Charlotte after this season. And look, that could very well happen. That definitely could happen. With Kemba there and Jeremy Lamb kind of signed to the contract extension, that might be what ends up happening. But this can still be a good year and a good experience for Jeremy Lin. And the more the team wins, the better it is for Jeremy Lin, and the easier it'll be for him. So I'm just really happy that the team won. Let's pick up the quarter by quarter here in the middle, actually late in the third. With the score tied at 74-74, Jeremy Lin came into the game for Nick Batum. Then, at this point, Washington went on a run, and they had been on kind of a continuous run through the third quarter. But from when Jeremy came into the game to the end of the third quarter, basically Washington went on a 7-0 run. So he came in at 74-74, and by the end of the quarter, it was 81-74 for Washington. Now, at this point, late in the third, Jeremy had his second turnover of the game. Both turnovers were the result of Jeremy driving into defenders, like he was trying to get through two defenders, and the ball being stripped from him, from his hands. So this wasn't a situation where Jeremy was dribbling. He had already stopped dribbling, and he was running into the defenders, and they were able to pry the ball out of his hands. So that's something Jeremy's going to have to work on. He's going to have to work on the grip strength, protecting the ball, because he is very much oriented to driving to the basket and going for layups. And if defenders can get their hands in there, they will. Also, hopefully, the referees will give Jeremy more calls, because on a lot of these plays, he's getting fouled and it's not being called. But if they're not going to call it, you just have to work on your strength, work on protecting the ball. The two of the three turnovers were of that variety. And it's just, okay, so you just make alterations so that doesn't happen, hopefully, in the games to come. Okay, moving on into the fourth quarter. Now, again, 81-74, that is the beginning of the fourth quarter here. Kemba Walker played 41 minutes in this game. That is one reason why Jeremy Lin played only 15 minutes. In fact, it's the main reason why he played only 15 minutes. However, Clifford is trying to experiment with different lineups, like Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lin, Jeremy Lamb. He is trying to find different combinations. So as I said before, don't give up yet. Don't think that Steve Clifford has written Jeremy Lin off, because he hasn't. There's still, Clifford said earlier in the season that he's experimenting, that it might take 20 games to kind of find the right mix of lineups, the right mix of guys together, and so forth. So this is all an experiment in progress. And it's kind of working, and it's working itself out. And it's just Jeremy was the odd man out tonight. But that doesn't mean he's going to be that every night, and he hasn't been in recent games. What I think Steve Clifford thought tonight was he definitely was all in on winning this game. Like, he understands what I say, which is they got to win this game. This is a game you must win, particularly because Washington is playing on a back-to-back. You need to win this game, and if you're going to have a serious chance at the playoffs. And so that's why he played Kemba so much. Whenever you're down, or the chips are down, or you're under pressure, you go with what you know. Steve Clifford is used to riding with or using extensively Kemba Walker and Al Jefferson, and that's what he did tonight. In other words, I'm going to trust Kemba more than I'm going to trust Jeremy Lin. Whether that's fair or not, I think that's what Steve Clifford was thinking, and it worked tonight. So like I said, I mean, all's well that ends well. And I can tell you, I'm sure Jeremy's just happy that the team won. Okay, early in the fourth, Jeremy blocked Nene in the paint. It was a terrific play. I mean, it was basically face on. Jeremy just anticipated when Nene was going to jump up, and he just basically blocked his shot. It was great. He then missed a three-pointer from about 25 degrees left of the top of the arc, Michael Jordan, I believe the official title now is chairman of the Hornets, was at the game, so he got to enjoy this, which was good. Then Jeremy had his second block, which I believe was also, it was not on Nene. It was against Gary Neal. This play helped turn the momentum into Charlotte's favor. He blocked Gary Neal, and he forced a jump ball. Basically, it was one of those situations where you grab the ball. Or I think this was the same play. It might have been two different plays, but I believe it was the same play. Gary Neal drove to the basket, wanted to put the ball up, and Jeremy grabbed the ball from him. And so they both had their hands on the ball at the same time. It was one of those situations, and that forces a jump ball. When this play happened, it was 85-80 for Washington, I believe. Or no, it was 85-78 for Washington. And this was right at the beginning of the comeback. And the team had just taken a timeout, and they were later on, Kemba would say that they kind of, they had more urgency. And so Jeremy gets the block, forces the jump ball. He wins the jump ball. The ball goes to Kemba, and Kemba goes down and scores a layup. That made the score 85-80, and that was, like I said, that was kind of like the beginning of the super comeback to come. Then, middle of the fourth, Jeremy had his third and final turnover of the game. He was driving to the basket, and Nene got in front of him, and basically Jeremy ran into him. And it was a charge, which is also it's a foul and a turnover. Look, so if you're Steve Clifford, okay, Jeremy's had a couple turnovers, although Jeremy Lamb did also. He's missed a couple of shots. Jeremy Lamb has a little bit more shooting rhythm and scoring rhythm in this game. So I can understand why Steve Clifford did what he did, staying with Jeremy, going with Jeremy Lamb. And taking out Jeremy Lin. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I get it. It kind of fits. Or neither Jeremy was playing poorly. It was a thing of, well, okay, who's playing maybe a little bit better, and we know that Steve Clifford likes taller and longer players, so that might have figured into things as well. So like I said, as a Jeremy Lin fan, I might not be thrilled with it, but I understand it. as compared with some of the other coaches JLin has played for, Steve Clifford usually makes sense in what he's doing, at least in his own internal logic, and his logic being defense and taller, longer players. And I will give credit here. Jeremy Lamb played good defense in this game, particularly down the stretch, which he hasn't always this season, but he did tonight. Now, right after Jeremy's third turnover, Nicholas Batum came into the ball game for Kemba Walker. So at this point in the game, the lineup was JLin, Jeremy Lamb, Nick Batum, Marvin Williams, and Al Jefferson. But Kemba wasn't going to be out for very long. The idea here from Steve Clifford was get Kemba a rest and then bring him back. And it was going to basically buy some time until we can bring Kemba back. And Kemba just had like his fourth turnover, or a third or fourth turnover. He's getting a little sloppy with his passes. So Clifford probably figured, okay, let's sit him down. Now, maybe with the way that the team was performing when Kemba was out, they continued the comeback. Clifford could have stayed with Jeremy Lin and just let Kemba sit and keep sitting because things were going the right way. But he decided not to do that. And again, I think he was just all in for the win. And he went with what he knows, which is Kemba. And Jeremy had a couple turnovers and a miss or two, so maybe that contributed as well. When Nick Batum came into the game, it was 85-83 Washington. Then at this point, Batum was more running the offense, which is Jeremy was playing more off the ball, which again, I do think that might be having some effect on that real plus-minus statistic. Then Jeremy almost had a turnover. He went to pass the ball to Al Jefferson, and it kind of got knocked away. So it wasn't a bad pass, but Washington anticipated it. Okay, then Charlotte's still on the run here, so we got the score to 85-85. Then Jeremy, I put great defense. He's playing really good defense, as was the whole team. He forced Gary Neal into a missed shot. Then Jeremy himself missed his second shot of the quarter. He dribbled to the free throw line, basically, and went for a jump shot, and it just missed, went around the rim and came back out. And soon after that miss, score still tied 85-85 with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left. Then Kemba Walker came back in for Jeremy Lin, and that would be the final moments of Jeremy Lin's night. And once again, I understand the logic here from Steve Clifford, from his perspective. The game's tied. You've been using Kemba heavily the whole game. You really want to get this win. You know Kemba more than you know Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin missed a couple shots, had a turnover in the quarter. He is playing good defense, but you're going to go with what you know. And maybe you're thinking Jeremy Lamb, taller, longer. He's hitting some shots tonight, or maybe he's scoring a little bit better than Jeremy Lin is tonight. So we'll stick with that. And like I said, look, it worked out. And it probably would have worked out if Jeremy Lin had been in the game instead. But that was the decision he made, and I understand it, especially given that it was made when the score was tied. And Kemba's a guy. Kemba's one of your main guys and one of Steve Clifford's guys. So that's what happened. Okay? So at this point, Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lamb, Nick Batum, Marvin Williams, Al Jefferson. Essentially the starting lineup except for Jeremy Lamb in for P.J. Hairston. And as we said, the principle here is that you begin the game with P.J. Hairston so he can play defense against one of the perimeter threats or the main perimeter threat on the opposition. But then later in the game, you allow Nick Batum to play that role. Earlier in the game, you preserve Nick Batum's energy. This is the thinking. But then later in the game, put Nick Batum on one of the best offensive players, bring in another offensive player, either Jeremy Lamb or Jeremy Lin, and there you go. And that's what this lineup was, just Like I said, tonight the sixth man was Jeremy Lamb rather than JLin. The comeback continued, 90-85. Charlotte was in the midst of a 25-0 run, which is absurd. That almost never happens. But Washington couldn't hit a shot. Charlotte couldn't miss, and it just kept rolling. Okay, so we go 90-85, 94-85, 98-85, and so forth. Basically, Charlotte gained the momentum, didn't let go of it. Washington lost all momentum from the third quarter, like Sacramento did the other night, and then we ended up with a final score of 101-87. As I said, it was 27-6. Charlotte outscored the Wizards in the fourth quarter, and Washington probably ran out of gas because they did play last night, and that's why you want to just put the pressure on. Overall, look, Jeremy Lin's PER is going to go down tonight. There's no question about it. I'm looking at the numbers right now. They definitely will. I'm really not upset. I'm not, because the team won, and that's the primary thing here. Like I said, even if Jeremy's not the permanent sixth man, he's clearly he's clearly in the 9-man rotation, and he's very important for this team. And the better the team does, the less pressure there is on Jeremy. He could play more of his game, kind of settle into the offense, be able to hit more shots, just because, again, there's less strain on everybody on the team. So winning is going to help JLin, regardless of how much or how little he's playing. So sure, I would have liked to see him play more tonight, and I'm sure the team would have won if he had finished the game rather than Jeremy Lamb. But overall, it's a good night for the team, which means it's a good night for JLin. That's the way that I kind of look at things, and that's how I feel. I do believe that Jeremy's settling in more. I said that in the Sacramento game, that I thought it was the most relaxed that he looked with the team. Tonight he played kind of a similar role. He was not forcing or pressing the offense. He did a couple times on the turnovers. Like I said, that's a combination of, hold on to the, work to protect yourself from turnovers a little bit more, as Jeremy's had issues with before. In this case, don't let guys rip the ball out of your hand. And so he was aggressive in those instances, but he was more kind of laying back, playing more of a point guard role, a distributing point guard role, rather than a scoring shooting guard role. Jeremy Lamb had 12 shot attempts, and JLin had 4. So I don't think that Jeremy's being passive. I think he's kind of just playing more of that role. And like I said, I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. He would have had more assists, except guys missed shots. He did a nice job of setting up his teammates, and he was looking for his shot. He was trying to get to the basket. He just had a couple of difficult moments when he was driving a couple of those times. So all in all, to me, it's a successful night for JLin and for the team. It really is. Even he did what he needed to do in the time that he was on the court, and the team succeeded. So that redounds to everybody's benefit, including JLin. I do think this is the best lineup and best 9-man rotation that this team can have, at least while Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is out. And when Michael Kidd-Gilchrist comes back, then that bumps P.J. Hairston out of the rotation. Or at least, it probably will bump him completely out of the rotation, I would imagine. Or maybe he becomes, maybe you expand to a 10-man rotation, but I doubt it. There is a chance that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist could return this season. If he does, it'll be late in the year, very late. I think it would probably be sometime like in April. Maybe he can come back down the stretch, or if the team makes the playoffs around that time. So the more that this 9-man rotation plays together, the better it's going to get. And that will work to Jeremy's benefit as well, knowing where guys are at, so on and so forth. So I'm not, like I said, I feel good about tonight. I mean, I wish Jeremy would have better stats, play a little bit more, but he did what he was supposed to do tonight. He did what he needed to do. The team won, etc. And like I said, maybe he does leave after this season. Maybe he does. Maybe he goes somewhere else. And that's totally fine. The team has made a commitment to Jeremy Lamb, so that could be a possible signal to Jeremy Lin. Not that the team doesn't like him, but that if Jeremy wants a particular role, maybe he has to go somewhere else. But as I said, at least this can be a positive thing. This team clearly likes each other. They support each other. Kemba Walker really likes Jeremy Lin and supports him. You can see that completely. In fact, there was definitely late in the third quarter, Kemba was looking for Jeremy Lin. He was trying to help Jeremy Lin get started scoring. It's clearly happening. So it's a shame if Jeremy has to keep moving team to team. But at least if you're going to be on a team, have it be a good team with a good coach and supportive teammates and a good environment. And that's what this is. So we'll see. I mean, obviously we're early in the season. I'm not saying Jeremy Lin's leaving after this year. We don't know. But this can still be a positive development. And he gets to work with Stephen Silas all year, who he very much respects. And I believe he feels that Silas has helped his game. Clifford's going to help him. They've already helped him with his defense. So this is a good thing for Jeremy. Even if this might not end up being a situation where he's going to get the type of minutes per game that he would like to get and that he deserves to get. Well, we'll see. We'll see as the year goes on. Okay, that's it for now. Once again, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody around the world, particularly, I think it's just celebrated in the United States or maybe in North America, but happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs down, your comments below. We want to thank Gary Chen for the artwork you're looking at right now. Gary is an artist and blogger in Taiwan. He's also a member of the Jeremy Only Lin Gardner fan group. You'll find information about Gary and the fan group in the video description below the video player. Also in the video description, you'll find information for highlights of this game. And finally, you will also find there information about how you can join the Conservative New Media Facebook group and how you can come and follow us on Twitter as well, where we talk basketball there. Once again, I am PFE Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. Thanks a lot for watching Conservative New Media. We strive to be the #1 Jeremy Lin YouTube fan channel. Look, a good night. Again, I'm pleased. I really am. I know there's a lot of people that aren't happy. I'm happy. This is a good night. The more that the team can go through games and have games and win games, and the less drama, the less pressure, the less strain from losing that there is, the better Jeremy Lin's going to feel and the better he's going to play. That's what I think. Jeremy's he's sensitive. He's very tuned into everything that's going on around him. So he's had to go through so much craziness in the last 3 years, and even at the end of New York with everything that was happening there. And he just needs a stable environment. And it's even better if you can have a stable winning environment. And right now, that's what's happening for the team. I definitely think that's going to help Jeremy Lin in the long run, even if he has nights like this where he does play the few minutes on the team of people that play. So what? You win, you move on to the next game. Maybe you're the finishing guy next game, and you go from there. Like I said, feeling good. Now, it was important that the team won this game because the schedule's going to get tougher now. 2 of the next 3 games are against Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. In my opinion, those are expected losses. I'm not saying the team can't win because they could. Say you lose those 2 games, okay? You're at 9-6 right now. You lose those 2, that puts you at 9-8. You're still above 500, and you've played 2 of the best teams in the league. That's why winning games like tonight and against Sacramento are so important. And in between those two games, you play the Milwaukee Bucks at home, the final game of the homestand. That's a winnable game, although Milwaukee is talented. Now you have a cushion. You have a cushion. And that's what this team has been working so hard for, and why this 4-game winning streak is so important. They're doing a great job taking advantage of the homestand, and hopefully they can at least win against Milwaukee if they don't win against Cleveland and Golden State. The next game coming up, as I mentioned, is against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That game will take place 2 days from now, Friday, November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving here in the United States, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That means the game will take place early Saturday, November 28th, 8 a.m. in Taipei, Taiwan, and throughout China. That is it. I hope you're having a great night or great day wherever you are around the world. Look, Cleveland's had a tough game tonight. They're beatable, but it's going to be very difficult because they're going to be mad. They're mad after losing tonight, so they're going to be very focused on winning the Charlotte game. However, if Charlotte plays well, they could beat them. So we will see what happens in that game. Okay, that's it for now. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. We will talk to you again very shortly. Have a great night and a great day, as I said before, and we will talk to you again soon.